Sunny and warm. High today 86. Clear tonight, low 58. A sunny, nice day tomorrow. High 79. Sun and patchy clouds. A warm day on Saturday. The high on Saturday 84. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560. The Answer.
68 now at O'Hare. Next news coming up at 7:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560. The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, and your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM.
The potential for frauding with mail-in voting that maybe we haven't paid as much attention to what big tech is up to as we should. We certainly have talked about it over the last couple of years, really actually dating back to this video that was unearthed by our next guest of the post-election post-mortem at Google World Headquarters.
Oh, that's right, when they had a cry session.
Yeah, with Larry and Sergey and Sundar and the whole gang about the world coming to an end because Hillary Clinton lost the election. They couldn't fathom a world in which President Trump was the president because, of course, that would mean minorities would be under assault and so on and so forth. Right. That really hasn't come to pass, particularly those, 6- and 7-figure Google engineers. But okay. All right. The man who obtained that tape in 2018 is Allum Bokhari. He is a senior technology correspondent at Breitbart, and he's the author of the soon-to-be-released book, September 22nd, later this month, Deleted, Big Tech's Battle to Erase the Trump Movement and Steal the Election. Allum Bokhari, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the invite. Good to be on.
Yes, and good work in unearthing that video. That was really important in addition to other information you have been able to cull from big tech. And I want to go to the second part of the title, Erase the Trump Movement, Steal the Election. The Steal the Election part. This was a testimony that our colleague Dennis Prager offered last year before a Senate subcommittee that a noted Democrat, but also psychologist Robert Epstein offered in terms of how Google in particular, but Google working with Facebook and Twitter, could really move as many as 20 million votes, according to Dr. Epstein's research, through the way that search engines return results and through the censoring that's happening on Facebook and Twitter and the like. And I just wanted you to comment on some of that research and what you mean when you say the prospect of stealing the election.
Well, certainly the search engine manipulation described by Dr. Epstein is going to be a major factor, I think, in swaying undecided voters. I think a lot of conservatives and Trump supporters believe, well, they're not going to be manipulated by these tech companies. They know they're biased. That's true, but the big danger is to undecided voters, because when an undecided voter wants to learn more information about a candidate, they may not follow politics every single day. They'll go to one of these platforms. They'll go to Google, to Facebook, to Twitter, and what they'll see is a constant stream of propaganda against Donald Trump and in favor of Joe Biden. We know that almost all conservative content now is shadow banned or suppressed. I did an article just the other day showing that when you search for BLM is on Google, the suggested search results are almost all positive or neutral. It doesn't reflect what people are actually searching for. Whether if you go to a competing search engine like DuckDuckGo, it would be is BLM Marxist, is BLM peaceful? People who are curious about the movement, trying to find out, have they done good things or bad things. You won't find that on Google. You won't get a balanced picture. And that's something we did in 2016 as well by deleting negative search suggestions about Hillary Clinton. And I think they're just going to increase that this election. We've already seen them cut search visibility for Breitbart News, one of the top conservative websites out there, to 0 on searches for Joe Biden and Biden. So if you're searching for information about the Democrat candidate, you are very unlikely to see any results criticizing him. And I think that's going to have an enormous impact.
In addition to that, Facebook has taken criticism, ironically, from the left for not being aggressive enough in banning conservative content or pro-Trump content, accepting political ads. and the like. But give us your assessment of sort of Facebook's disposition and some of their conduct that could serve to try to move the election Biden's way. I mean, Zuckerberg, even where he has distinctions between, where there are distinctions between him and the conduct of Dorsey or the conduct of the folks at Google, I mean, he still is obviously a man of the left.
Absolutely. I think what the key difference between Zuckerberg and the leadership of Google, as we saw in that leaked Google tape, the sort of partisan nature of the leaders of Google, they weren't just breaking down in tears and melting down over Trump's election. They were also, declaring their intention to change their policies in response. Kent Walker, their global legal chief, talking about the need to make the populist movement a so-called blip in history. We saw Ruth Porat talking about mobilizing the great strength and resources of Google. So they weren't just talking about how bad the election was, they were talking about what they're going to do about it to make sure it doesn't happen again. With Facebook, it's more they blow with the wind, so they're trying to maintain a balance between pressure from Republicans and pressure from the Democrats and from their own employees. But because Facebook is such a left-wing place, the left gradually wins out. That's why they've been slowly banning more and more people from the platform. Just yesterday, they announced that they're designating the shooting in Kenosha that Kyle Rittenhouse was involved in as a mass murder, and they won't allow people to defend him on the platform, even though he hasn't been convicted yet. And certainly the videos that came out of that suggests the legal fight is going to be is not clear cut against him.
Right. Yeah. And then now let's fold in Twitter too. It seems to me Twitter's a bit of an outlier when we talk about the big tech companies, because Twitter is more sort of media and so-called influencers in their own echo chambers. It doesn't seem to have the same persuasive capacity as Google or Facebook. It just doesn't have the same audience, and certainly not as big.
No, unless people use it. The impact of Twitter is not generally that big in terms of persuading large numbers of people. It is very influential in terms of sort of birthing political movements. So lots of political movements that grew because of Twitter. Black Lives Matter is one of them. President Trump has used Twitter very effectively to bypass the mainstream media and get his message out there to his supporters, and then obviously it's shared to other platforms as well. But here's one of the most dangerous things social media companies and tech giants are doing at the moment. It's not just the overt censorship that we know about, the people getting banned, the messages getting censored. We see that that's out in the open. But more dangerous is the covert censorship, the censorship you don't see. That's what goes on in the back end of these companies to determine whether your post is going to appear at the top of people's feeds as they log into these platforms, or if it's just going to be buried and barely any people will see it. A lot of people, journalists complain that right-wing media and conservatives do too well on Facebook, and they use engagement numbers to justify that case, because conservatives have higher engagement on Facebook than their left-wing competitors. But engagement doesn't show you how many non-partisans, how many non-followers are seeing that content. It just shows you what the fans are doing. So we don't know if conservative messages are reaching people in the middle of the road, undecided people at all. And that's the real danger that big tech poses in this election. I've been talking to sources inside these companies, inside Facebook, Google, Twitter for 4 years. I've interviewed a lot of them for the book, and they all say the same thing, that after the election in every single one of these companies, there was a huge panic. It wasn't just Google. And what they did was establish all these new departments to tackle things, like so-called fake news, so-called misinformation, so-called election integrity. All these words and priorities of big tech, they emerged right after the election. And one of my sources in Facebook told me the people who joined those efforts inside the company, almost all of them were militantly anti-Trump. And they were the people who rushed to join these departments.
And we've seen them in their own words on some of the undercover videos that James O'Keefe at Project Veritas has done. I mean, these minders, the engineers, the people that you're talking about, in combination with the purge that's happened at these big tech companies, too. If you are the nail that's sticking up like James Damore at Google or Palmer Luckey at Facebook, you're gone.
Absolutely. and my sources inside these companies are generally conservative. They can't object to what's going on. So no one is speaking out against this as the left wingers inside these companies influence the features of these companies more and more, make them more and more biased. You have to remember that an algorithm is not going to be unbiased as the people who create it, the people who program it are not unbiased. If the people telling an algorithm how to recognize hate speech are from the radical left, it's going to categorize a lot of ordinary Republicans as engaging in hate speech, and that's what we've seen. That's why we see so many prominent Republicans often getting allegedly mistakenly suspended for hate speech, because these algorithms are just getting more and more biased. And it's going to start happening to everyone, because soon enough, everyone's posts will be automatically scanned by these AI algorithms.
I wonder if the antitrust look and the discussions of antitrust action against some of the big companies, Google and Facebook in particular, but and Apple as well, has that had a chilling effect on any of this conduct at all? Because absent that, right, I mean, there's nothing that can be done with respect to their conduct or will be done between now and November 3rd. So in terms of influencing this election, we've essentially ceded this territory to them.
There's certainly no time to fix this before the election. The Republicans really dropped the ball. They had control of Congress and the White House at the start of the Trump presidency. That was the moment to start changing the law and holding these tech companies accountable. A lot of conservatives, especially, establishment conservatives inside the Beltway, many of whom are funded by these big tech companies, by the way, make the bogus argument that you can't interfere in the free market, these are free market entities. It's not true. They actually owe their position, their dominant position in the marketplace, to special legal privileges they got from Congress in the 1990s. So much of the debate around changing the law revolves around changing those special legal privileges. I don't think you can call it a free market when they owe their position to special handouts and perks they got from the government. Certainly long-term, things like antitrust and this petition that's now going before the FCC to narrow the bounds of those legal privileges is going to be important. But certainly before the next election, these companies are not going to be held to account. There's not going to be any oversight or regulation. So they're really going all in against Donald Trump, and we're going to see the impact of that, I think.
Allum Bokhari, senior tech correspondent at Breitbart News, author of the soon-to-be-released Deleted, Big Tech's Battle to Erase the Trump Movement and Steal the Election. I'm sure you can pre-order that on all the appropriate sites. Allum, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with the book.
Thank you. Great to be on.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest